Welcome to Famous People, English Stories. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
Introduction. Today's story isn't about kings or celebrities. It's about something powerful, something that can truly change your life, reading. Join us on a journey that shows why reading is one of the most important habits you can build, especially when you're learning English. Are you ready? Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Girl Who Hated Books. There once lived a young woman named Mira in a small, quiet town. Mira was 25 years old. She worked at a coffee shop in the mornings and spent her evenings watching TV shows, scrolling on her phone, and dreaming about a different life. Mira wanted to be more confident. She wanted to speak better English, understand people faster, and maybe one day travel the world. But there was one problem. She hated books. Yes. Ever since she was a child, Mira believed books were boring. Long pages. Difficult words. No fun. Every time someone said, "You should read more," she rolled her eyes and walked away. For Mira, reading felt like homework. And homework was something she avoided. Her friends read books and used big words. They talked about exciting ideas and stories. But Mira stayed quiet. She smiled, nodded, and felt small inside. She often thought, "Why am I not as smart as them? Why can't I speak like that?" Still, she never gave books a chance. Not once. One rainy afternoon, something unexpected happened. Mira was walking home from the coffee shop. The sky was gray. The wind was cold. She had no umbrella. As the rain began to fall harder, she ran into the nearest building. It was an old, dusty library. She looked around. It was quiet. The smell of old paper filled the air. Shelves stood like tall trees, holding thousands of books. Mira frowned. She didn't want to be there. But the storm was strong. She had no choice. So, she sat on a wooden bench near the window and waited. Time passed slowly. She looked at the clock. 15 minutes. Then 30. The rain showed no signs of stopping. To pass the time, Mira looked around. A small book near her caught her eye. It had a blue cover with golden stars. The title was simple, "The Journey Begins." She picked it up, just to see what was inside. She didn't plan to read. Just look. But something strange happened. The first line made her pause. "You are stronger than you think, braver than you know, and this is only the beginning." Mira blinked. That sentence felt like it was speaking to her. She turned the page. Then another. She read the first paragraph. Then the first chapter. For the first time in years, she forgot about her phone. Forgot about the rain. Forgot about time. She was reading. And she liked it. The librarian noticed her and smiled. "First time in here?" she asked gently. Mira nodded. "Yes, and maybe not the last." The librarian handed her a small card. "Take the book home. It's free." It might change your life. Mira didn't believe in magic. But that evening, something magical had begun. One small book had opened a door she never knew existed. A door into her own mind. Into a world of words, ideas, and imagination. That night, for the first time, she slept with a book next to her bed instead of her phone. And that was just the beginning. Chapter 2: A Library, a Rainy Day, and a Mystery. The next morning, Mira woke up early. The book she borrowed was still on her pillow. She had read half of it the night before and couldn't stop thinking about it. Something inside her had shifted. She felt curious. On her way to work, she thought about the words she had read. "You are stronger than you think," that line stayed in her mind like a soft whisper. After work, instead of going straight home, she turned left. Her feet led her to the library. Again. The sun was shining that day. The streets were dry. She had no reason to go inside, but she did. The same librarian was there, sitting behind the desk. She looked up and smiled warmly. "You came back," she said. "I guess I did," Mira replied with a shy smile. "Do you have more books like this one?" The librarian stood up and walked over to a corner shelf. "You liked The Journey Begins, so maybe you'll enjoy Voices in the Wind or The Light Inside Us. They're both short, simple, but powerful." Mira took both. She didn't know what kind of stories they were. But the titles made her feel hopeful. As she walked toward the reading area, she noticed something unusual. In the back corner of the library was a door. It looked old, with a faded sign that read, "Staff Only, Archives." But the door was slightly open. And through the crack she could see stairs leading down. She looked around. No one seemed to notice. The librarian was helping a group of children pick out books. Curiosity pulled at her like a string. Slowly, quietly, Mira stepped toward the door. She knew she shouldn't go in. But something told her this wasn't just any storage room. The steps creaked under her feet as she walked down. It smelled like dust and ink. The light was dim. She reached the bottom and found herself in a basement filled with old shelves and boxes. There were newspapers from the 1950s. Handwritten letters. Forgotten photographs. And books. Hundreds of them. But these books weren't on the regular shelves upstairs. These were old. Rare. Some were wrapped in cloth, others tied with string. It felt like a secret treasure room. In the middle of the room stood a table. On it was a thick book, open as if someone had just been reading it. The pages were covered with notes in blue ink. Underlined words. Circles. Arrows. Mira moved closer. The title at the top of the page said, "The Power of Stories." She read a sentence aloud in a whisper. A story is not just words. It is a mirror, a map, and a spark. It shows you who you are, where you could go, and lights the way. Goosebumps rose on her arms. Suddenly, she heard a noise behind her. The librarian had followed. "I see you found Mr. Clark's favorite book," the librarian said gently. Mira turned around, startled. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's okay, the librarian said, smiling. Mr. Clark was the first librarian here. He believed stories could heal people. He left these notes to help others find their way. Mira looked down at the book again. It's beautiful, she said. Yes, the librarian said softly. Some people think reading is just a hobby. But it's more than that. It can be a door out of pain. A window into new worlds. A key to a better you. Mira nodded slowly. That night, she didn't just take 2 books home. She took a notebook, too. For the first time, she wanted to write. Not just read. What started as a rainy day escape had turned into a mystery. A secret basement. A forgotten book. A spark inside her. She didn't know it yet, but reading wasn't just becoming a habit, it was becoming a path. A path to something bigger, something she was only beginning to discover. Chapter 3. The Secret of Mr. Clark's Basement. Mira couldn't stop thinking about the basement. About Mr. Clark. About the book full of handwritten notes. Every word she read seemed to speak directly to her. That night, she sat on her bed with the old library book in her lap and her new notebook open beside her. She copied down one sentence. Books do not change the world. Readers do. She paused and wrote it again, slower this time, to feel each word. The next day, Mira returned to the library as soon as she finished her shift at the cafe. The librarian was waiting near the front, almost as if she knew Mira would come back. I want to learn more about Mr. Clark, Mira said softly. The librarian nodded. Come. I'll show you something. She led Mira down to the basement again. The same creaky stairs. The same scent of old paper. But this time, the librarian opened a wooden drawer hidden behind a stack of boxes. Inside were letters. Folders. Photographs. This was his journal, she said, handing Mira a leather notebook. Mira opened the first page. My name is Arthur Clark. I have watched people come and go, watched them grow, watched them leave. Some people borrow books. Some borrow courage. She flipped to another page. There was once a girl who came to the library every day. She was quiet. Lost. But one day, she found a book of poems and started writing her own. A year later, she published her first book. Her name was Eliza. Mira looked up. Are all these stories true? Yes, the librarian said with a gentle smile. Mr. Clark believed every person who walked in here could be transformed by a single book. He wrote about many of them. Mira turned more pages. There was a story about a boy who was bullied but found strength in reading stories about heroes. A woman who overcame heartbreak by reading travel stories that gave her new dreams. A father who learned English by reading to his children every night. These weren't just stories. They were lives changed by reading. Suddenly, Mira felt something inside her shift again. She wasn't just visiting the library anymore. She was becoming part of its story. She stood in front of the tall shelf and slowly pulled out one book after another. Some were history. Some were fantasy. Some were biographies. Each one had a small blue sticker inside the cover. At first, Mira didn't notice. But when she opened The Journey Begins Again, she saw it too, a blue sticker with tiny letters. For those who seek something more. A.C. Arthur Clarke. He had marked these books. Books with power. Books that could change lives. Mira turned to the librarian. How many books did he mark? Hundreds, she replied. He believed that every reader is looking for something. A lesson. A dream. A path. And he wanted to leave them clues. Mira spent the next hour looking through the books, reading a line here, a sentence there. Some made her smile. Some made her cry. But all of them made her feel something. The librarian watched her quietly, then said, "You know, Mira, you don't have to be a writer to be changed by stories. You just have to be open." Mira nodded. But I want to write. I don't know what. But I feel like something's waking up in me. She looked down at her notebook. She had filled 5 pages already, quotes, questions, ideas, and even a short paragraph about her own life. That night, she didn't turn on the TV. She didn't check her phone. She read for hours and wrote until her hand hurt. When she finally closed her notebook, she whispered aloud, "I think I'm starting to understand." Reading wasn't just about learning English. It wasn't just about improving vocabulary or grammar. It was about discovering who you are, what you feel, and what's possible. And somewhere in the dusty basement of a small-town library, Mira had found more than old books. She had found the beginning of her new life. Chapter 4: The Book That Changed Everything. Mira woke up before the sun. The world outside was still quiet, but her thoughts were wide awake. The notebook on her bedside table was full of new writing. Ideas, dreams, and reflections. Just weeks ago, she had never thought of herself as a writer, or even a reader. Now, every page she turned, every sentence she wrote, felt like a step toward something bigger. That morning, she didn't go straight to work. Instead, she walked to the library first. She wanted to borrow a new book. But not just any book. She was looking for something deeper. The librarian greeted her with the same gentle smile. "I think I'm ready," Mira said. "For what?" the librarian asked. "For the book that changes everything." The librarian looked thoughtful, then reached behind the desk. From a wooden drawer, she pulled out a dark red book with gold letters on the cover. It was old but cared for, like a treasure passed from hand to hand. The title read, "The Book of Questions." "This one doesn't give answers," the librarian said softly. "It asks the right questions." Mira opened it. The first page had only one sentence. "What is the life you dream of, and what is stopping you from living it?" She blinked. The words hit her like a gentle wave, soft, but powerful. As she flipped through the pages, she saw more questions. Who are you when no one is watching? What would you do if fear disappeared for one day? When did you stop believing in yourself, and why? Each question felt like it was written just for her. Mira borrowed the book and took it with her to the cafe. During her lunch break, she sat outside with her sandwich in one hand and the book in the other. She read one question and then closed the book to think. Then she opened her notebook and wrote whatever came to her mind. At first, her answers were short. A few words. A sentence. But slowly, something began to unlock. She began to remember things she hadn't thought about in years. Her childhood dreams. The time she had wanted to be a teacher. Her fear of speaking in front of others. Her secret wish to travel. That night, after closing the cafe, Mira went to a small park near her home. She sat under a tree, opened the red book, and read another question. If you could tell the world one thing, what would it be? She thought for a long time. Then she whispered her answer to the night air. Your story matters, even if no one else sees it yet. She wrote it down. The next day, something inside her felt different. Stronger. Clearer. She began to read every morning before work and every evening before sleep. She made time for it, like brushing her teeth or eating lunch. It became part of her life. Not a task. Not homework. A habit of the heart. She started sharing quotes with her coworkers. Writing small messages on napkins. One said, "Be kind to yourself today." Another said, "You are becoming something beautiful." People started noticing. "You've changed," one coworker said. "You seem lighter." Mira smiled. "I guess I've been reading." It didn't seem like a big answer, but it was. Reading had helped her listen to others, but more importantly, it helped her listen to herself. One rainy afternoon, as she sat in the library basement, Mira realized something. Mr. Clark hadn't just left behind a collection of books. He had left a map. Each marked book. Each note. Each story. They were like signs on a path, a quiet path toward purpose. And Mira was finally learning to follow it. Reading was no longer just a tool for learning English. It had become a way to learn about life. About people. About hope. And most of all, about herself. She held the red book close and closed her eyes. Maybe, just maybe, she could help others discover this, too. Chapter 5, A Letter to the Past, A Voice for the Future. One evening, Mira sat by her window, notebook in her lap, pen in hand. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. Inside, everything was still, except her thoughts. It had been nearly 2 months since she found the old book in the basement. Since the day she began reading like it mattered. And it did matter. More than she ever imagined. Now, she was ready to do something she had been afraid of for years. She was going to write to someone very special. She flipped to a fresh page in her notebook and wrote slowly. Dear younger me. Then she stopped. A lump rose in her throat. The girl she was writing to, the younger Mira, was someone she hadn't thought about in a long time. She closed her eyes and pictured herself at 13. Sitting in the back of the classroom. Quiet. nervous. Always worried someone would laugh if she answered in English. She took a breath and continued. I know you're scared. I know you don't feel smart. I know every time you open your mouth, you worry you'll get the words wrong. But guess what? You're going to be okay. Mira paused. A tear rolled down her cheek. One day, you'll walk into a small library and find a dusty book that changes everything. You'll discover stories that don't judge you. Stories that listen. And little by little, you'll find your voice, not just in English, but in life. She smiled softly. You'll stop hiding. You'll start writing. You'll begin to believe that your thoughts matter. That your story matters. That you matter. She signed the letter with love and folded the page carefully, placing it between the pages of the book of questions. That night, she dreamed of shelves full of books, with tiny blue stickers and handwritten notes. But this time, they were her words. Her thoughts. Her encouragement for someone else who was afraid. When she woke up, she knew what she needed to do next. At the library, Mira approached the librarian, who had become more like a guide, a quiet friend on her journey. I want to help, she said. The librarian raised an eyebrow. Help how? I want to mark the books too. Like Mr. Clark did. I want to leave words for someone who might need them. The librarian smiled. Then start with this one. She handed Mira a book titled Voices of the Heart. Mira opened the cover and added a small note. You're not alone. Someone else has felt this too. Keep going. She added a small blue sticker and placed the book on the shelf. Then another. And another. Each time she read a book that touched her, she added a message inside. A kind word. A thought. A truth that someone else might need to hear. Word spread quietly. People started checking books not just for stories, but for messages. Some left their own notes behind. A sentence. A thank you. Even a quote in their native language. The library slowly became more than just a building. It became a conversation. One day, Mira noticed a young girl sitting in the corner, flipping through a book of poems. The girl looked nervous, just like Mira had once felt. Mira walked over and smiled. Do you like poetry? The girl nodded. I do. But I'm not sure I understand all of it. That's okay, Mira said gently. Sometimes, we feel poems more than we understand them. The girl opened the book to a random page and pointed. Someone wrote something here. Mira looked. It was her own handwriting. If a line makes you feel something, then it's already yours. The girl smiled. Mira's heart warmed. In that moment, she understood something beautiful. Reading wasn't only about learning words. It was about connecting hearts. Each note. Each sticker. Each quiet message hidden in a book, it was a bridge between two people who might never meet, but still shared something real. That evening, Mira added a final message in her notebook. Reading gave me a voice. And now, my voice is helping others find their own. She looked out at the sky, now painted in twilight blue. And somewhere in that quiet evening air, the stories she had read and written floated softly, like whispers of hope waiting to be heard. Chapter 6. The Reading Club begins. It started with 1 chair. Then 2. Then 4. Mira didn't mean to start something big. She only wanted to share something good. But that's how many beautiful things begin, quietly. One Saturday morning, she asked the librarian if she could borrow the back corner of the library for an hour each week. "Why?" the librarian asked. "I want to start a reading club," Mira replied. "For people like me. People learning English. People who feel shy. People who want to belong somewhere." The librarian looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "I think that's a beautiful idea." That week, Mira made a small sign and taped it to the front door of the library. Reading Club, Saturday 11 a.m. All welcome. No pressure. Just stories, smiles, and slow English. She didn't know if anyone would come. But they did. The first week, 3 people showed up: an older man from Iran, a teenage boy from Colombia, and a woman from the Philippines who barely spoke. Mira welcomed them with a warm smile and a short poem. "We don't have to be perfect," she said. "We just have to be present." They read one story very slowly, and then talked about it in simple English. They stumbled over words, laughed at funny lines, and shared how the story made them feel. The next week, 5 people came. Then 8. Soon, the little corner of the library began to fill with faces from all over the world: India, Nigeria, Ukraine, China, Brazil. Mira started bringing tea. Someone else brought cookies. Another person brought a favorite book from home. It wasn't just a reading club anymore. It was a community. One woman stood up one week and said, "I never spoke English outside of class before. Now, I feel brave enough to try." A man nodded and added, "I read my first full book last week. I didn't understand every word, but I felt every page." Every Saturday, they read something new. A short story. A poem. Even a fairy tale. Mira chose stories that were short, simple, and full of feeling. Then, one day, she asked the group, "What if we try writing something together?" The group looked nervous. "Just a few words," Mira added. "A sentence each. We'll create a story as a team." They began slowly, one person at a time. Once, in a small town, a girl found a quiet library. She didn't speak much, but she had big dreams. One book made her brave. And she helped others feel brave too. By the end, they had written a beautiful story about a girl who became a voice for many. They smiled when they finished. Someone whispered, "It's her story." Mira blushed but smiled. "It's our story now." From that day on, they added a new tradition: group writing. They called it story circles. Each person added a piece. There were mistakes. There was laughter. But there was also magic. One Saturday, a shy boy named Leo raised his hand and asked, "Can I bring my little sister next time? She's only 9, but she likes stories." Mira nodded. Of course. Everyone is welcome. The next week, the little sister came and brought her friend. Soon, the reading club had chairs for kids, teens, adults, and even grandparents. Stories didn't care about age, or accents, or where someone came from. Stories just asked one thing. Will you listen and will you share? By the end of each session, the room felt lighter. Like something had been lifted. Like hearts had been opened, one sentence at a time. Mira often stayed behind afterward, helping clean up, putting away chairs, and watching the quiet shelves. She felt proud. But more than that, she felt at home. One day, she saw a small note taped to the reading corner. Thank you, Mira. You helped me find my voice. There was no name. But Mira didn't need one. The words were enough. She folded the note and placed it gently inside the book of questions, next to the letter she had written to her younger self. So much had changed. And it all began with one book and one brave decision to read. Chapter 7: A Surprise Invitation. The wind had started to change. Outside the library, the leaves rustled with the quiet excitement of fall. Inside, Mira was stacking chairs after another joyful Saturday at the reading club. Smiles, laughter, and simple stories still lingered in the air. She was humming softly when the librarian walked over, holding a cream-colored envelope. This came for you, the librarian said. For me? Mira took the envelope, surprised. Her name was written in perfect handwriting, neat and graceful. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter, elegant, formal, and unexpected. Dear Mira, we've heard about your reading club from the library's online newsletter. Your story has inspired many, including our team at the City Literacy Foundation. We would be honored to invite you to speak at our annual Voices of Change event next month. Please consider sharing your journey and the impact of your reading club on the community. With respect and admiration, Dr. Ava Bennett, City Literacy Foundation Chair. Mira blinked. Speak? In front of people? In English? Her heart began to race. That evening, Mira sat with the letter on her lap. She reread it 3 times. The old voices in her mind began to whisper, "You're not good enough. Your English isn't perfect. People will laugh." But another voice was stronger now. It was quiet, but steady. It said, "You have something to share. You've come far. Your story matters." Still, she wasn't sure. So she did what she always did when unsure, she read. She opened the book of questions and found a page she had underlined months ago. Sometimes the next chapter begins with fear, but if we don't turn the page, we'll never know what happens. She smiled softly. It was like the book had been waiting for her. At the next reading club meeting, she brought the letter and read it out loud. Her voice trembled at first, but her group listened closely. When she finished, they clapped. A few people stood and hugged her. "You have to go," one woman said. "You're the reason we're here." "Yes," said Leo, the shy boy from earlier. "You helped us." Now help more people. Myra's eyes filled with tears. But what if I mess up? The man from Iran smiled and replied, then we will still be proud. Because you tried. Over the next few weeks, Mira practiced. She wrote her speech on tiny cards and spoke in front of mirrors. She made mistakes. She forgot lines. She laughed. She tried again. Her club even helped. They listened to her speech, corrected small grammar slips, and cheered her on. It became a group project, a shared dream. The night before the event, Mira couldn't sleep. She paced her room, went over her words again, and finally sat down at her window. She looked up at the stars. Please, she whispered, just let me make someone feel less alone. The event hall was grand. There were microphones, spotlights, and rows of people. Mira stood backstage, palms sweating. A kind woman approached. You're Mira, right? I read about your story. I just wanted to say, you're already making a difference. Mira swallowed hard. Thank you. I hope I can find the words. You already have, the woman said, and walked away. When Mira stepped onto the stage, she took a deep breath. The lights were bright. The room was quiet. She looked at the crowd and saw people of all ages, young, old, smiling, curious. She began slowly. A few months ago, I found a book with blue stickers and handwritten notes. It changed my life. Her voice was calm. Her English was clear, simple, and full of heart. She told them about the old library, the first book, the fears she had. She told them about the reading club, the tea, the cookies, the shared stories, the laughter, and the learning. And then she ended with this. Reading didn't just help me learn English. It helped me learn courage. It helped me remember that our voices matter, even if we're not perfect. Especially when we're not perfect. Silence. Then, applause. Long, loud, and warm. Someone shouted, "Thank you, Mira." She smiled deeply. The kind of smile that comes from growing through fear. Later, when she returned home, Mira sat by her window again. She opened her notebook and wrote just one line. Today, I didn't just read a chapter. I lived one. The stars outside shimmered brighter than ever. And she knew this was just the beginning. Chapter 8, the book she wrote. Winter arrived quietly in Myra's town. Snow fell like soft paper from the sky. The world outside turned white, cold, and still. But inside Myra's heart, something warm had started to grow. An idea. A big one. It began the night she returned from the Voices of Change event. As she looked at the little notebook on her desk, she felt something calling her. She had spoken her story out loud. Now, maybe it was time to write it down. Not just for herself, but for others. Others like her. Those who were afraid to begin. Afraid to speak. Afraid to fail. What if she could write a book for them? A simple book. With short stories. With gentle words. With hope. The next morning, she walked to the library, heart pounding, breath-forming clouds in the cold air. She sat in her favorite corner, opened her notebook, and wrote 3 words. Dear reader, welcome. She stared at the page. It felt real. Like a beginning. She kept going. You may not feel brave. You may think your English is not good enough. You may feel small. But if you're reading this, you've already done something powerful. You've begun. Mira smiled. She wasn't writing a grammar book. She wasn't writing a textbook. She was writing something personal. Something real. Stories. Simple lessons. Encouragement. A soft voice for those who needed it. She called the book The Courage to Read. Each chapter told a tiny story. One was about the first book she ever finished. Another was about the mistake she made when ordering coffee in English, and how the kind barista helped her anyway. One chapter was about the words she used to hate, like failure, accent, and alone. She rewrote them. Turned them into something new. Failure became first lesson. Accent became story music. Alone became waiting to be found. She even added short reading exercises at the end of each chapter, with gentle questions like, what new word did you learn today? How did this story make you feel? Can you share this chapter with someone else? Mira wanted the book to be more than pages. She wanted it to be a friend. The writing was slow. She made mistakes. She changed her mind often. She doubted herself almost every day. But every time she wanted to quit, she remembered the faces at the reading club. The quiet boy who now read aloud. The older woman who now laughed at English jokes. The man who said, because of this club, I feel human again. She remembered the note she had found taped to her chair. Thank you, Mira. You helped me find my voice. That voice now guided her pen. By spring, the first draft was finished. She printed a few copies and gave them to her reading club. I wrote this for you, she said, voice shaking. They read it slowly. They smiled. Some cried. It's like you're sitting next to me while I read, said one man. This isn't just a book, said another. It's a bridge. Soon, the librarian shared Myra's book on the library website. Then someone from a community college asked if they could use it in their beginner English classes. A teacher wrote her a message. Your book made my students feel seen. Then a woman from another town emailed Mira. I read your book and started a small group here too. Thank you for showing us how. Mira was overwhelmed. She never imagined her words could travel so far. One day, she got a message from a publishing company. They had heard about her story and wanted to help her publish a real, official version. Mira paused. She looked at her notebook. She thought of her first shaky words. Her first small steps. And she whispered, okay. Let's turn the page. When the published book arrived, Mira held it like a newborn. The cover was simple, a sketch of an open book with rays of light coming from it. Inside the first page, in small, careful writing, it said, for every learner, reader, and dreamer. You are not alone. At the next reading club, Mira placed the published book on the table. No one spoke for a moment. Then someone whispered, "You did it." Mira smiled. "No," she said. "We did it." And outside, the first flowers of spring began to bloom. Chapter 9: The Letter That Changed Everything. Spring was in full bloom. The days grew longer and warmer, and the air smelled like fresh flowers and hope. Mira felt happy. Her book, The Courage to Read, was reaching more people than she had ever imagined. Her reading club was still meeting every week, filled with laughter and new stories. But one morning, an unexpected letter arrived in her mailbox. It was from a distant city. The envelope was thick and heavy, sealed with a golden stamp. Mira sat down carefully and opened it. Inside was an invitation. Not just any invitation, it was from a famous international literacy conference held in New York City. The letter read, "Dear Mira, your inspiring work in helping learners through reading has touched many lives. We would be honored to have you as a guest speaker at our upcoming conference. This event gathers educators, writers, and leaders from around the world. Your story, your book, and your voice belong here. Please join us in sharing hope and courage on a global stage. Warm regards. The Global Literacy Network." Myra's hands trembled. New York City. So far away. So big. For days, she thought and worried. Could she really go? Could she speak in front of so many people? Would her English be good enough? But then, she remembered all the times she had said yes to fear before. She remembered the first book she read, the first speech she gave, the first page she wrote. And she felt the steady voice inside her say, "This is your next chapter." Mira began preparing immediately. She wrote a new speech, this time about the power of small steps. She practiced every day. She shared her plans with her reading club, who cheered her on. "Go, Mira," they said. "Show the world your light." Her family helped too. They saved money for her trip and gave her gifts to take with her, a journal, a warm scarf, and a small photo album of her community. Finally, the day came. Mira stood at the airport, suitcase in hand, heart full of dreams and nervous excitement. She thought about the little girl she once was, scared of speaking, afraid of failing. Now, she was a woman ready to share her story with the world. At the conference, she met people from many countries. She heard stories in different languages but understood the same hope in every face. When it was her turn to speak, Mira stood on the big stage, lights shining down, hundreds of eyes watching. She took a deep breath and began. "I want to tell you about a small book, a quiet library, and a group of friends who taught me that reading is not just about words, it is about courage, connection, and change." Her words were simple but full of power. She told them about her journey, the fears, the failures, and the victories. She talked about how reading helped her find her voice, and how sharing that voice helped others find theirs. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. After the speech, people came to talk with her. Teachers, writers, and learners thanked her for her honesty and hope. One man said, your story reminds us why we do this work. A young woman said, because of you, I am starting to read again. Mira smiled, feeling something she never had before, belonging on a big stage, but also staying true to her small beginnings. That night, Mira sat by her hotel window, looking out at the city lights. She opened her journal and wrote, "No matter where we come from, no matter how small we feel, our stories matter. Today, I learned that courage grows when we share our journey with others." She closed the journal and looked at the stars over the city. Her journey was still unfolding, and she was ready for whatever came next. Chapter 10: The Next Journey. After the conference in New York, Mira returned home feeling full of energy and new ideas. The city's bright lights had shown her a bigger world, a world where her small stories could touch many hearts. But something else had changed inside her. She felt ready to explore more. Not just the world of books or English learning, but the world itself. Back at the reading club, Mira shared everything she had learned. She talked about the power of stories to connect people from different countries and cultures. She spoke about the importance of listening, not just speaking. Her friends listened closely. They saw how much Mira had grown. One member said, "Maybe we should visit other clubs. Share our stories with them." Mira smiled. "Yes. Let's do it." The idea grew fast. Together, they planned a journey to visit other reading clubs in nearby cities. It was a big step. They called it the Reading Bridges Project. The goal was simple: build bridges between learners through stories, kindness, and reading. Mira started reaching out to libraries, schools, and community centers. Some replied quickly and warmly. Others needed time to trust. But Mira did not give up. She wrote emails, made phone calls, and sent invitations. Every no was a lesson. Every yes was a gift. Soon, Mira and her small group of friends packed bags and traveled to their first new club. They brought books, games, and a big box of hope. The new club was in a city much bigger than their own. The learners there were different, some younger, some older, some from other countries. But the smiles were the same. At each meeting, Mira told her story. She invited others to share theirs. They read poems, laughed at jokes, and practiced English together. Sometimes, the stories were sad. Sometimes, they were joyful. But always, they were real. One evening, after a long day of traveling, Mira sat outside a small cafe. A young woman approached her and said, "Your story helped me start reading again." "Thank you." Mira felt tears. She realized this was the heart of her journey, touching lives one story at a time. The Reading Bridges project continued for many months. They traveled to many places, met many people, and collected many stories. Each story was a bridge. Each bridge brought people closer. And Mira's confidence grew with every step. One day, Mira received a letter from a famous university. They invited her to speak about her project and share how reading can change lives. Mira accepted. Her journey was still new, still exciting. And she knew this was only the beginning. As Mira prepared for her next speech, she looked at the horizon. The sun was rising. It painted the sky with colors of hope. She whispered to herself. Reading was the first step. Now, the world is waiting. Thank you so much for joining Myra's story today. Remember, reading is more than just words on a page. It's a journey that helps you grow, connect, and find your own voice. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more English learning stories just like this. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. And here's a challenge for you. Try reading one new English story or book this week, even if it's just a few pages. Share your experience in the comments below. We'd love to hear your journey. Keep practicing, keep believing, and remember, every word you read brings you one step closer to your goals. See you in the next video.